Idaho Drinkerinos, lots to get to today, including a big distribution merger that went down between Hayden Beverage and Idaho Wine Merchant. What does any of that mean, and will it affect what you can buy at the store? We've got Hulk-a-Mania hitting the Treasure Valley with a double turnbuckle to promote the next all-American beer. And my old buddy Greg Barnes, formerly of Idaho Wine Merchant and currently with Prost Brewing, drops in to drop some knowledge on all things local, including some insider knowledge on what this merger between Hayden and Idaho Wine Merchant means for you. And we take a trip down memory lane. Then we talk about Prost and all the amazing liquid coming out of that brewery. That shiny new brewery, actually. Beautiful new brewery down there in Colorado. And the new rise of craft lager that we've been seeing, including some locals that we like and some other Mountain West breweries that are doing some fantabulous craft lager right now. As if that's not enough show for you, brother. We have a trio of new beers. Well, they're new to me. In Friday Night Pints. Oh, yeah, brother. We've got a great show for you this week in the Idaho Booze Podcast. This show is sponsored by the Idaho Brewers United, or IBU. Sign up for IBU's monthly newsletter at idahobrewers.org and get VIP access to brewery events, tastings, and news straight from the source. Be the first beer nerd on your block to download the IBU app and start earning points for free Gem State beer gear. It's only one email a month, so what do you have to lose? Sign up at idahobrewers.org today. Welcome back to the Idaho Booze Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Kuntz. Hope everyone's having an awesome weekend, Friday, Saturday, whenever you're listening to this, on the treadmill, in the garage, whatever you're doing. Hope it's good times. I know this was an awesome week. It wasn't too hot. Good time to get outside and do some activities like I did, like mowing the lawn or playing some golf or whatever it is you were doing. Hope you had a nice cold beer or a nice little cocktail, glass of wine afterwards. I know I had a few fun cocktails. I actually got out to a new place to me, Coa Del Mar, which is in Eagle, and I was true to my word for Ben Hart, friend of the show, and I got a nectarine martini with that 44 North nectarine vodka. Gotta tell you, I'm not really a vodka guy, but that stuff, it hits, and it hits hard. It's nice. Nice martini, really dry, really crisp and clean, and just a really nice way to kind of enjoy a happy hour. I really recommend it to anyone that is in anywhere that has that 44 North nectarine or the huckleberry. That stuff, it makes a nice martini. I'll say it. I'm not afraid to say things like that on this show. We get political. Anyway, moving on to my big rant for this week. I got to come up with a name. So if you have any ideas for the name of the big rant, go ahead and send those to me at idahoboozepod@gmail.com. Love to hear from everybody out there. We want this to be a conversation with everybody, not just a one-way street here. Love to hear from you guys. And we do have a mailbag coming up next week. So if you have anything to add to that, go ahead and send it to that email address. That's going to be in the show notes as well if you want to check that out. Anyway, the big news of the week, Idaho Wine Merchant was bought up by Hayden Beverage. Hayden adding to its already considerable portfolio of beer, wine, and spirits, and bringing on a lot of big brands, at least big brands that people are on the inside, maybe like, and especially in the wine area, a lot of really nice brands in that Idaho Wine Merchant book, including J. Lore, Boggle, and some other local ones, some Walla Walla wines that are really good, stuff like that. So why is this a thing that I'm talking to you about? Well, I got to start at the beginning, and that is the three-tiered system. So for some reason, Budweiser's the reason, the U.S. government decided that it had to step in on beer sales and create a three-tiered system because Budweiser was dominating the shelves and creating a monopoly for itself by pretty much bullying everybody else out of the way. I mean, they would tell stores that unless they carried every single Bud product on all their cool shelves or all their shelves anyway, that they wouldn't get Budweiser if they didn't have all Budweiser. They would do that all the time. And that stuff still happens today. I mean, it hasn't gone away, but it certainly is less prevalent now with this three-tiered system. The three-tiered system basically means that the manufacturer makes the beer or the wine or the spirit or whatever it is. Then they have to sell it to an intermediary distributor. Then the distributor sells it on to the retailer. And in the glorious minds of the U.S. government at the time that this was started, this meant that a manufacturer like Budweiser, definitely Budweiser, couldn't then go right to the retailer and say, look, you better buy our beer or else. Because it's not Budweiser selling the beer to the retailer, it's the distributor selling the beer to the retailer, right? Right. Does that make sense to everybody? Clear as mud. Thanks. Moving on. So this 3-tiered system immediately failed because Budweiser, guess what Budweiser did? They bought distributors. So they owned a bunch of distributors, including, they still own, I think, the second biggest beer distributor in the country, which is in Houston. I think they still own that. They did own the one in Phoenix until John McCain's wife bought that up, or her dad bought it or whatever. So they did have Phoenix. They had Houston. They had one in Los Angeles as well, I think. There's a couple others out there that they owned. So the 3-tiered system, spectacular failure upon its launch. And so the U.S. government had to come in and make some more rules. And they had to say that if you owned a brewery, you couldn't distribute your own beer. So there's some breweries out there that have bought or have created distributors in their area. Stone is the best example. Stone Brewing created a distributor in San Diego, really because the owner, Greg Cook, he wasn't getting beer that he wanted in, and it was, I think Left Hand was the one that was kind of left. I think it was Left Hand and North Coast were the two that he really wanted in San Diego for their bar and for some other places. And he just couldn't get it. So he said, fuck it. I'll just start a distributor. I got a bunch of money. So he cordoned off an area of their cooler at Stone and made a distributor. The only thing was they couldn't distribute Stone beer. They could distribute anything else. So they brought in Left Hand, North Coast, a handful of others. I think Crooked Stave in Colorado did the same thing. So it's been kind of worked around a little bit in that way. But for the most part, 3-tiered system it's a manufacturer, then you have a distributor, then you have the retailer. And here in the Gem State, we have a couple of big distributors. We have Watkins Distributing. They pretty much control Budweiser in the whole state except for Boise. Then we have Stein Distributing, which they control Budweiser in Boise. Then we have Craig Stein Beverage, which controls Coors, I think, for the whole state. And I think they're owned by Columbia, which is a Seattle company. And then I could be 100% wrong about all this, by the way. Then we have Hayden. Hayden Beverage is basically Hayden, they have a different way of looking at it. Most distributors start with a big yellow, which is Coors, Bud, Miller, whatever. Hayden went the other way. They were like, okay, we don't have a big yellow, but what we will have, or what we can get, are a bunch of big crafts, and we can put those together in a book, and we can make up the sales for Big Yellow with those big crafts. So they went out and got Sierra Nevada, Sam Adams, New Belgium, Georgetown. Geez, pretty much name it. I think they have it. Firestone's at Stein. But yeah, and then they went out and they got, when the locals started getting big, they had Payette when Payette first started. They have Sockeye. They have Mother Earth. They have Boise Brewing. So they have a bunch of these local craft, and they have a bunch of big craft. And then the icing on the cake was when they were able to bring in Red Bull. And Red Bull, along with those, and they have Pabst. So they have Pabst, they have all these awesome brands. They have Red Bull, and they have like Mike's Hard Lemonade and all this other stuff. So with all that stuff put together, they are the largest, I believe they're the largest distributor in the state anyway. And they certainly deserve it. Hayden Beverage, friend of the show as far as I'm concerned. They do a great job. Anytime I run into anyone from there, they're always cool. We talk about later with Greg how Hayden, they position themselves in the market like this for a reason. And so what happened this week was Hayden Beverage swallowed up Idaho Wine Merchant. Idaho Wine Merchant, a smaller distributor, they had brands like North Coast, Barley Browns, Meriwether Cider, some wines, a lot of nice wines. Like I talked about before, J. Lower, Boggle, and some other ones. Idaho Wine Merchant, had some problems of their own. The reason why they were vulnerable was because they just merged with this other company called BRJ. And I heard a lot of talk, a lot of chatter a lot of chatter about how BRJ and Idaho Wine Merchant people weren't really getting along. And what ended up happening was sort of the face of Idaho Wine Merchant, kind of the engine, the guy who pretty much ran everything there, Kyle Bass, up and quit and went to Scout. And it was, I heard, I could be wrong. Kyle, you can write in, you can call in, whatever you want to do. You can text me, let me know if I'm wrong. But what I basically heard was Kyle wasn't getting along with the BRJ people. And the BRJ people were treating him like BRJ had bought an Idaho Wine Merchant when it was really the other way around. Idaho Wine Merchant bought BRJ. So I can understand that. I can understand some friction there and everything that happened in that sort of area. But this is, probably why Idaho Wine Merchant was vulnerable to Hogen. And Hogen had just got done doing some deal with Idaho Wine Merchant. I can't remember what it was right now, but they got to talking, and all of a sudden now Idaho Wine Merchant owned by Hogen Beverage. And, they were vulnerable for a lot of reasons. They didn't have a big brand, Idaho Wine Merchant. They didn't have Coors or Bud, anything like that. They just lost one of their big brands, 21st Amendment, to Hogen. Oh, that was the deal that they were doing. Yeah, 21st Amendment got moved over to Hogen, with 21st getting a relaunch that appeared to have been very successful. I'm not sure anyone is really out there buying, watermelon beer or whatever else they have, but I saw it around town a lot more after it was relaunched by Hogen. And Idaho Wine Merchant, they have some great brands, like I talked about, Barley Browns, Anderson Valley, Heretic, Meriwether Cider. But when was the last time you saw anything with Heretic? I mean, their brewer was here about 8 years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. He's an awesome dude, and they're just down the way in Northern California, not that far away. Anderson Valley, when was the last time you saw anything done with them? Meriwether Cider is awesome, fucking great brand, amazing cider, good local brand. And Delirium, you haven't seen anything from them either. I haven't seen Delirium on tap since I moved back here. So yeah, this merger happened. Idaho Wine Merchant and BRJ combined. They did that about a year ago, and they had one of the best wine books in the Treasure Valley. Hogen merged with RNDC probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe longer. And its wine game and booze game stepped up considerably after that. It used to be a lot of like Barefoot and stuff like that. And now they have some real like awesome brands. They also just picked up another wine distributor called J.W. Thornton from old friend Johnny Rizzafi, my old partner at Stein. So he's on the board at Hogen now because of this deal with J.W. Thornton. So Hogen has now built the biggest and best wine portfolio in the state. And it's huge because all the growth we're seeing in Treasure Valley and the Coeur d'Alene area and the southern part of the state, where does it come from? Where does this growth come from? Ding, ding, ding. It's California, Oregon, and Washington for the win. And all those states are famous for what? Wine. They all love wine. They're big wine states. California, biggest wine grower, I think, in the world now. Oregon, the second biggest wine grower, I think, in the states. Washington, probably fourth, maybe third or fourth. All these states are famous for wine. People that come from there want wine. Now Hogen is poised to be the region's best wine distributor, if it isn't already. And that adds to their book as the region's premier beer distributor. So now they have wine and beer, and their spirits portfolio is pretty awesome as well. So Hogen Beverage, with this move, is now poised, if they haven't been already, to be a huge, gigantic factor in pricing, distribution, allocation, and marketing. So I would say 2 out of every 3 brands that you care about, that you buy, that you purchase at the store, is going to be a Hogen product in beer, wine, and spirits. And it's troubling. As a, capitalist, I say, good for them. Awesome. They have done the best job. I don't think anybody can really argue that fact. They pay their people the best. The people that work there stay there forever. Their distribution chain is usually pretty good. Their truck drivers are always on time. Their bathrooms are clean. I mean, what else can I say about Hogen? They're awesome. They do a great job. They have awesome brands. I can tell you right now, I'll go down to my fridge and I bet 3/4 of the things I have in there are Hogen products. And it's just probably the sparkling water that isn't, to be honest with you. So the big question that comes up about this, is this a monopoly? Has Hogen cornered the market in distribution, pricing, allocation for beer, wine, and spirits in the Gem State? Well, it's kind of. because of the federally mandated 3-tier system, distributors are this necessary evil that we've been stuck with. And that's not to say that they're bad. I'm just saying that as a manufacturer, if you're like me and you come from a brewery, your distributor partnership is both necessary and evil. It's a struggle. You have to align on things you normally wouldn't align on with a company, because that company is not only representing you in the market that you're in, but also other breweries and wineries and spirit makers and distilleries and whatever. So it's not like they'll tell you during the negotiation how much they're going to do for you. And then when it turns out that they don't do as much for you, they'll say, well, your case equivalencies aren't as good as, Sam Adams or whatever. And this is just kind of the way it goes. And it's one of those things that you as the consumer doesn't really have to worry about, thank God. And us in the business, pretty much if you're a sales and marketing director for a brewery that's doing any sort of business at all, it keeps you up at night thinking about some of these distribution deals. It's just a lot. So the 3-tiered system put into place to discourage manufacturers of big lager beer from taking over all the shelves through price gouging, forceful negotiation, and flooding the stores with their ancillary products. And like I said before, that's been a huge failure. So now Hogen has all these brands, has all this wine, has all this beer. So what's to stop them from, taking part of price gouging or forceful negotiations or flooding stores with ancillary products that people aren't buying? Just like Budweiser was doing way back when. I mean, Coors has done it too with all their shitty NAs and all their other shitty beers that they put out. And not just Coors, Bud too. Bud has shitty beers that they put out as well. I mean, Platinum, come on. No one bought that shit. It was everywhere. Bud Dry, I mean, come on. Nobody bought this shit. And it was everywhere, all the time, on all the shelves. It's ridiculous. Should one entity control everything? It's a messy look right now, because Hogen, by all accounts, is a great company. Everybody that works there loves it. I've met Dodds a bunch of times. He's a great guy, the owner, Dodds Hogen. Great guy. Awesome dude. All the people, and passionate, by the way. Super passionate about all of his brands, I'm sure. Great guy. All the people that work there are great. You go and buy a keg from them. The girl that works in the keg room is awesome. I mean, it's a really awesome place. But should they have this much power and this much influence over what we drink? It's a lot. I understand that. And there's more to get to on this merger. And we'll do just that with Greg Barnes, who actually used to work at Idaho Wine Merchant and now actually works with Hogen. He has some interesting insight into that place and that deal. We'll also talk about his current brewery, Prost Brewing, how he and I met, and a bunch of other fun stuff coming up later in the pod. Up next, we'll wrestle with some brew news that includes Hulk-a-Mania hitting grocery stores and my favorite beer fest in Idaho going off this weekend. I'll tell you where that is, how to get tickets, and more on Brew News coming up next on the Idaho Booze Podcast with me, Steve Kuntz. This week's Brew News brought to you by Like Button. You, a multifaceted entrepreneur newly invested in a struggling startup, needs organic and paid growth through lead generation marketing, but you're on your own and can't yet afford a marketing department or a big agency. What do you do? Go to likebutton.us and pick from several package options that utilize organic social media marketing, paid Google ads, SEO strategy, and more for just a fraction of what you would pay a fully staffed marketing department. For as little as $2,000 a month, you get amazing results and boost your new business to greater heights. Go to likebutton.us today and start growing your business with Like Button. Welcome back to the Idaho Booze Podcast. I am your host, Steve Kuntz, and it is time for Brew News. Insert cool music here. We'll get it. We'll get there. Don't you worry, Drinkerinos. We will get there soon. We've got the Magic Valley Beer Fest coming up. It's the 13th annual Magic Valley Beer Fest. Boy, that makes me feel old. I went to the first annual there in Twin Falls City Park, sponsored by the Blue Lakes Rotary Club. 1 to 6 p.m. this Saturday, August 3rd. Like I said, down in Twin. You can get your tickets now. There's a link in show notes. Go ahead and use that for $30. Or you can get them at the gate for $40. I would recommend getting them now because that fest sells out. And those guys down there, Shane and all the Blue Lakes Rotary Club guys, they're awesome dudes, but they will make you wait in line. They're not going to overstep the fire department rules or whatever else they want to do. If you don't get there with a ticket and get in when the thing starts at 1 o'clock, you're going to wait in line, guaranteed. It's an awesome fest. It's one of my favorites because the weather is usually perfect. Music is amazing. Tons of beers. They're going to have 150 craft beers there. Live music, like I said, raffle, silent auction. All proceeds go to local charities. Buy those tickets online, or you can head down, go say hi to Shane and Pierre at Kodo Brewing in Twin and buy your tickets there. They're making some good beers down there, actually. And not even actually. They are brewing some awesome beers at Kodo Brewing. Pierre's an awesome brewer. Shane, a great dude. Go down and see him. Get down to Twin this weekend. I would. I'm going up north, though, so I can't. So Shane, everybody at the Blue Lakes Rotary Club, I know you're listening. Can't make it this year. Next year I'll be there, and maybe I'll even do like a live podcast or something from there. That might be fun. Awesome fest, like I said. I prefer this one to Idaho Falls. It's in the shade. The music is awesome. Beers are really good. And it's half the distance. And also less drunk Utahns. So yeah, go to magicvalleybeerfestival.com and get your tickets today. Save $10. And don't wait in line when you get down there. Whoa, it's really nice. I really do love that fest. So have fun this weekend down there, Twin. And if you're staying the night, if you go down Twin, stay the night, make sure you hit up Anchor Bistro, Elevation 486, one of those places, and get yourself a Bloody Mary, because Twin Falls is a fucking Bloody Mary town. They make great ones, so take advantage of that. All right, up next in brew news, U.S. Grain takes China's beer industry on tour. So the U.S. Grains Council took a group of Chinese brewing industry leaders around to barley farms, breweries, and other beer-related businesses to foster relations with them. They say that China is home to the world's largest beer industry, including a growing craft beer sector. So they showed off the entire supply chain of our brewing industry, from grain fields to malting facilities to breweries and everything in between, to give them a better understanding of how we are doing things in the brewing industry. These so-called executives from 6 Chinese breweries and import companies went on the tour. They spent a lot of time in North Dakota, Idaho, Washington. Went to Mountain Malt, looks like, in Idaho. And looks like one maltster, I never heard of them, Cold Steam Malt, even made a sale to a Chinese malt distributor. Good for them. So that's sort of what was in the story. And again, all the story links will be in the show notes, so you can go and check it out for yourself. My thoughts? Yeah, I know it's the Olympics and we're all supposed to be holding hands and singing Kumbaya and stuff like that, but these guys were just Politburo members getting a free trip to the States. You know, I hope they had a good time, stocked up on freedom, good whiskey, and blue jeans. But I've bought Chinese equipment in the past, and I can say with a certain degree of knowledge that if they do have a burgeoning craft beer scene, then I hope they're using U.S. tanks, because the tanks you buy from them over there are not suited for brewing when they arrive here. You have to get a welder in there. You have to make sure, and there's like 3 guys, Adam, if he's listening, thank you. And you have to make sure those things are sewed up, because they are not ready to handle. They have been shown to be less effective at handling pressure than U.S. steel tanks. Is that a metaphor? I don't know. I do know the real reason for this tour was not to build friendship, but to build sales and open up new revenue streams for these grain farmers. And I get it, and I wholeheartedly encourage it. I know there's a chance that depending on what happens in November, these exports to China will probably be tariffed, and those sales will probably dry up. So get them while you can, Cold Steam, get that malt over there. This all stems from the downturn in U.S. craft beer sales. So we've talked about the hop farmers having a rough time, and now we're seeing that the grain farmers need to kind of open up some new revenue streams as well. And this is a big part of what we do here in the U.S. with ag. And anybody that is out there that works in ag knows that there's always an international component to it. When I was at the Beef Council, we had the same thing. We did a yearly tour with some of our board members. They would go over to Japan or Korea or wherever. And then some people would come here and we'd give them a tour, show them around, stuff like that. So this is all part of the deal. It's all part of the ag deal. Good times. Let's do our part. Make sure we don't have to sell everything to the Chinese, and drink more American craft. Speaking of which, the Hulkster launches his epic real American beer in Idaho. This is in 1980s pro wrestler beer news that doesn't involve Andre the Giant drinking 117 cold ones in one sitting. Hulk Hogan, most recently, him tearing off his shirt at the GOP convention last month, has released his Epic Real American Beer. That is the name of it. Epic Real American Beer. Awesome name, guys. We definitely had the guys from Mad Men on that one. Making the Gem State the 7th state to be granted this new brew. The beer, not surprisingly, is a light lager. Described as a premium American-style light lager, meticulously brewed with 100% North American ingredients. North American, huh? Okay. The beer is 4.2%, light body, crisp, clean finish, quote unquote. Now, I ran into the display. We went to that big Albertsons on Eagle Road, and it certainly does come off as American. 12 packs are sort of all red, white, and blue. There's a big picture of the Hulk on there. And the display was quite patriotic. There was a flag and there was a big standee thing, and it's really cool. So our old friends at Hogen brought it in, saying in this story that the Hulkster stayed online with us for over 2 hours and personally presented the brand and its story. I'd love to hear that story. Adding that the commitment we've seen from Hulk Hogan and the Real American Beer team has been above our wildest expectations. Okay. To that end, Hulk-a-Mania, oh brother, hit Boise with a folding chair on Wednesday when the Hulkster himself popped up into a gas station on Broadway. Our very own Cameron Elgart was on the scene and claimed that the visit was, quote, hard. It's not often we get news as it happens on the pod, but we jumped on this story from the top rope. Oh yeah, it's Hulk-a-Mania. It's coming to Boise. We're selling epic Real American Beer. Real American Beer prices. 100% North American ingredients. America, America. I did do some digging. I found some other drinks from 80s celebrities that might actually be good. So let's see. Maybe give these ones a chance. We got Mr. Belvedere's Belvedere Martini. Sounds delicious. Classic martini with a mustache drawn on the glass that you pound while pushing play on the iRobot app to vacuum the house. Just like Mr. Belvedere would be doing if he was here today. That's a good one. Oh, here's another one. We got a Doogie Howser NA. These tasty NA beers are loaded with caffeine to help study up for those MCATs or whatever doctors study for. Doogie Howser NA. Pick one of those up. Pick a 6-pack of that up. And then, of course, we have the Macho Man Macho Margarita. Yeah, hermano. A marg fit for a Macho Man, brother. A Macho Man Macho Margarita. That sounds tasty. Well, we try. Got some brew news that you want to share? Email it into the show, idahoboozepod@gmail.com. Help out the staff of one here who obviously struggling at the studio. Keep up with what in this wide world of beer, wine, and spirits. Next up on the Idaho Booze Podcast, my good friend Greg Barnes from Prost Brewing drops by to talk Hayden Beverage, drinking up Idaho Wine Merchant, what it's like working over there, what it was like working over at Idaho Wine Merchant, including how we met and what this merger means for you, the customer. Then we will talk about his latest venture as the local area manager for Prost Brewing and how German can a brewery be when it's located in Denver. All that, Friday Night Pints, up next on the Idaho Booze Podcast. Welcome back to the Idaho Booze Podcast. I am your host, Steve Kuntz, here with Greg Barnes. Greg, how's it going?
It's going great.
Yeah? You want to elaborate on that, or is that it?
No, that's just, that's it. That's all I can divulge.
I appreciate that, keeping it close to the vest. So, Greg, we've known each other for quite some time. I'd say decade plus, 13, 14 years?
Yeah, since Epic days.
Since the Epic days, that's right. And what are you up to these days? Just kind of catch us up real quick while I go let my dog in.
Currently, I am working for Prost Brewing, and they're based in Denver, and we just launched into Idaho and Montana last year in April, and then earlier this year in Utah. So I cover those markets, and hopefully some more soon.
Wunderbar. That sounds awesome. Prost Brewing, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I see you brought some. You have a couple cans there.
Yes, got to share. That's what it's about.
Sharing is caring. That's what we say on this show. Sharing is caring. So thank you so much for bringing that. We will pop those open here in a little bit. But first, let's go over just how we met. So as you said, the Epic days, I was working for Epic. I was very green, very new, and inexperienced, and they sent me up here to sell beer. And then what happened?
Well, that ties into some stuff today with Idaho Wine Merchant. That's where I was at, doing the sales manager there. We had just launched Epic, but Epic was doing things that were brand new to the industry at the time and releasing lots of product and rotating through products. And it was very, very fresh and not normal at that time. And we struggled to make sure that we had all that product in all the time and rotated through.
And we didn't make it easy on you either. We didn't do separate. We didn't, like nowadays, a lot of people go through that. They do different product, but they'll use what's called a common SKU, which is the little barcode on the back, right? And we did not do that, did we?
No, it was a new product every time. And
how many products? How many products would you say we had
when we went at Idaho Wine Merchant at the time? I think we went through probably about 70 breweries that probably had about 3 SKUs each. And I think Epic was right around 200 SKUs by themselves. Maybe not that many, but there was quite a few.
I don't think it was quite 200.
But it was quite a few.
Hold on, I got Dave Cole on the line. Dave? Yeah, we had 36 beers. So I started at Epic 9 months into the brewery's life cycle, and we had 32 beers already out with different SKUs, different labels, different names, and we brought roughly 28 of those to Idaho.
Yeah, we had an Epic Village tap takeover that I think we had 24, 26 beers on in one little.
That's interesting. So let's talk about 2 tap takeovers that we did that you and I were involved with personally. One of them I'm thinking of is the one that went on at Bound Crossing.
Yep.
And we had how many restaurants and how many taps?
4 restaurants and 20, I want to say it's like 24 beers, 26 beers somewhere in there.
I think it was 24, 26 beers. So it was every tap handle at Beer 30, RIP.
Yep.
It was every tap handle at Boise
Fry Company.
Boise Fry Company. We had those.
We had flatbread. And the other place is gone now, but it used to be, I think it was Locavore. Yeah.
Okay, so did we have any at Tavern? I thought we might have had.
We might have had 1 or 2, so it might have been 5 SKUs or 5 different venues, but it was pretty fun. Just a little walking around. It was something incredibly unique at the time. Just a little walking around tap takeover on a Saturday afternoon, and
literally nobody had done it before. Nobody had ever decided to get 5 restaurants all competing against each other in one neighborhood to put the same brewery's beers on. And what was even more impressive is you didn't do that from a position of Stein or CSB or Hayden. You guys were just little Idaho Wine Merchant. We were able to get that done. How much negotiating did we have to do to get that going?
Well, it was mostly Chris Oates that actually did all that because he wanted to do the tap takeover. And so he knew that, I think at the time he had 10 or 12 lines, and he knew that he couldn't do it all there.
12.
So he wanted to convince everybody else to help him out.
So we sicked Oates on everybody else in the neighborhood. And we were like, my boss at the time said that the only way, and he said it in a British accent, so you can just imagine how, I don't know what the right word for it is. Anyway, you can imagine how it sounded. And he said, the only way that we're sending an owner and our head brewer up there is if you get 24 taps. And Greg and I said, okay, fine. And we did it. And they had to fly up here. They had to go from restaurant to restaurant. And, that's 24 taps is roughly 24 beers that you get to drink over the course of this thing. Now, this was done almost like a beer fest, right? Did we do, I can't remember if we had bracelets.
Punch cards.
That's right.
So people could go around and do that. And it was really cool because at the time Epic wasn't doing under 5% beer, so you couldn't get Epic on draft in Utah.
You couldn't get You could not get one single Epic beer on draft in Utah. That's true.
So it was kind of a cool little tap takeover in that you, even in their home state you couldn't get it, and they weren't in Colorado at the time. So we were the Epic tap room for
basically
a weekend.
And this is a real good shot at Utah, which is breweries there can't put 80% of their beers. I mean, for the good breweries, for some of the other breweries, they put all their beers on tap, but they can't put their good beers on tap. Nothing over 5% now. Back then, it was 4%.
Yeah. Yep.
So Epic was the first brewery since Prohibition in Utah to do beers that were exclusively over 4% or 3.2% by weight.
Yeah, at the time, Dave said he absolutely would never do anything under. So it was kind of fun. I remember we had an account in Malad, Idaho, that would sell a ton of Epic 22-ounce bombers at the time because people would drive up from Utah to get the beers that they couldn't get everywhere else.
Yep. Yeah, true story. We actually would market some of the ones that we did in, Idaho Falls. If we did tap takeover there, we would market that in Utah to people living in northern Utah and even Salt Lake area. If they want to get our beers on tap, you have to go up to this tap takeover in Idaho Falls.
And at the time, Utah didn't have a lot of other stuff going into the market. So, your selection was pretty slim anyway. So it really got people, they were willing to travel that kind of distance to get beer.
Yeah, for sure. And it was a beer desert, for sure. It was. And now it's gotten a little bit better, but everything's still sold pretty much warm. There's a couple of new liquor stores down there that have coolers, which is cool, literally. And, it's not as bad as it used to be by any means. But back then, and this is not that long ago, this is 2010, 2011, something like that. And literally, if you wanted anything from Epic on tap, you would have to come to Idaho or go down to Arizona to get anything on tap from them.
Yeah, it was a good draw. It was nice. That's the reason why it sold so well in eastern Idaho. It's just because of the market and Twin Falls.
So we did that. We did that takeover. It was mostly you guys. I helped a little bit, and I came up for it. Fun fact: Epic would not pay for me to come up for that fest.
I do remember that.
And I showed up there, and my boss's boss, the owner, goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I'm here to enjoy this fest that I worked on for basically a week. It took us a week about to get it kind of all done."
Yep.
And I had a great time because I paid for myself. I was up there staying at my own, with my friends, and I really didn't have to work or anything. So I had a great time. I went and got my punch card, and I think I may have gotten all the punches, if I'm remembering.
That was twofold. You did that, and you didn't have to listen to your British leader yell at you for
catching strays, which is good. He should catch some strays here. He deserves it. He's never going to listen to this, so it's okay.
Yeah, no.
So anyway, we did that, and then we did. I wasn't involved as much in the next one. You did another one, kind of like that, right? For Epic. Was there another one like that? I thought there was one. Was it at the Village, or was it somewhere else? Or was that the only time that we did it?
That was the only one that we did that size. We did do a big one with Pre-Funk at one time too. And I don't remember what else we had going on with that. But
that's what it was. It was Pre-Funk. We had 30 on it, Pre-Funk or something like that. Yeah. That's awesome. So anyway, I came up here in, I would say, it was probably like spring. I don't think it was cold. My memory isn't as good as it should be. It was either late, it was like February, March, April of it would have been 2011 probably. And you and I hit the road for the first time ever doing anything like this. And we hit, I want to say probably 15 accounts, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And out of those 15 accounts, there was one account, now we're friends, but back then was not impressed with me. Which account was the least impressed with me as far as a beer salesperson goes?
I don't remember.
Oh, it's Marganica.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yep.
Let me refresh your memory.
Nope, I do remember that now. Yep, come back around.
It's Marganica.
Yep.
And why were they not impressed with me as a beer salesman at that point? At my very first time ever being out, never trained. British guy never trained me. Nobody trained me for this. Why was he upset with me?
I have to try to remember, but I think it was because I don't really remember.
Because I was sauced. Was the reason.
Oh no, I don't remember that. Yeah, I don't remember that part of it. But yes, I do remember Jeff. Not
a fan.
Not a fan.
He's a fan now, so it's okay.
100%.
Jeff and I are friends now, but back then,
he's a fan of Epic over the years too, which he was
huge fan
then. But it was at the time. Again, it was all new to everybody, so it was like, I really want this beer, and then you go, oh well, that's not available anymore. But now we've got a new one.
Yeah.
Which today is sort of the norm, but
we were ahead of our time at Epic for sure. Yeah. So your boy showed up. I think it was late in the afternoon. I want to say it was after a few tastings. And I, being very green and not knowing how to comport myself at all, went ahead and sampled at those tastings, I'd say about 85% of them. And so by the time we got to Jeff at Parkanika, I had already had a few, I would say, to that point, and it was not professional. It was not my greatest moment, but I'd say that I recovered from it okay, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It was. It's just being new. Yeah, it happens to a lot of people too.
My drinking problem is very private. So.
Yes.
So that was a fun trip down memory lane. I really enjoyed that stuff. I like thinking about it sometimes just because it was so fun, because you guys at Idaho Wine Merchant were, I don't know if you were a new company, but you certainly weren't as into beer as like some of the other distributors around town. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. We had been at the time really just working in sort of heritage type breweries that had been around a long time, or else were like German imports or
Delirium,
things like that. So Belgian imports, things like that.
It's like Anderson Valley and like 21st Amendment.
Anderson Valley, Mendocino, and Fort Bragg were like the three that we were doing. North Coast. Yeah. So we were doing like 4 breweries, and they were basically just breweries that were near wine regions. So I wouldn't say we were really deep into the beer, and I don't know how we ended up linking up with Epic, but Epic was the first one, and it really sort of helped put us on the map as being somebody who was going to be craft beer friendly.
So I can provide a little bit of feedback there. The reason we went with Idaho Wine Merchant was because you didn't have Bud or Coors in your book. You didn't have New Belgium or any of the other big Sierra Nevada, Sam Adams. Yeah. So we were of the opinion of ourselves at Epic, which we weren't 100% wrong, but we were of the opinion that we were already ready to play with those guys in the pool. We were like, we are the Sierra Nevada of Utah. And little did we know Uinta was already kind of doing that, and Squatters a little bit less so, but we were positioning ourselves to be the next great big beer brand from, certainly of the Mountain West, and most definitely of the West Coast-ish kind of breweries. And it was because we had a lot of what I would call hubris, is what I would call it. What do you think about that?
I think that was exactly just, I remember talking to Michael and Dave, and there was no timidness in what they thought the brewery was going to do long term.
Timidness was not in our vocabulary at that point. And even me as a new person, so I came up here, it was my first trip up to Boise, and I want to say we probably scored about 90% set rate, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So sometimes, being sort of that kind of brand forward with what you do is good. Sometimes it doesn't rub off so well, as our friend Jeff at Barney would tell you. But, that was our attitude at Epic. We felt that we were already making beer that was good enough to kind of go with some of those bigger brands. We still had some growing pains to come through, but we felt that Idaho Wine Merchant was the best one to go with because you guys didn't have what we considered to be a big brand at that time. So I think that was a lot of it. And then the other part of it was you guys already had a really good background in selling awesome wine, and we felt that our beers more likely would be sold in that way, like as a fine wine rather than as a craft beer.
Well, and we really felt like we were brand builders. And so I think that we were really equipped to go out and teach people about a new brewery.
Yeah.
So I think that fit really well too because of the wine.
And real quick, let's just some of the same people are still there that worked with you while you were there, correct?
Yeah, lots of them.
Yeah, I'd
actually.
say David's still there.
Scott's still there. A couple of the guys over in Eastern Idaho. Quite a bit of the Northern Idaho team is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So now with this Hayden, so the big news of the day is that Hayden just bought Idaho Wine Merchant.
Idaho Wine Merchant / BRJ, because
/BRJ.
They were one company as well. So
the BRJ thing is interesting, and I have some stuff on that that I guess I talked about earlier in this podcast. I obviously have recorded that already. And so basically, when did you work at, like, how long did you work at Idaho Wine Merchant, and sort of what was your job there?
I was there about 3.5 years, I think. And I was the sales manager. And we were really going through sort of a growing changes for our company and expanding, and just opened up a new warehouse. And so they brought me on as a sales manager. I'd known the owner for a couple of years and knew some of the team. And so it was an easy fit for me. And then while I was there, we really worked on trying to build up the beer portfolio there as well. So.
And why did you end up leaving?
Well, because they told me I had to.
They offered you.
They offered me a time. No, what it was really I had really high ambitions as to where I wanted to see the company go, and I don't think they matched up with the owner at the time. And he had been around since he opened that company in '77. Super kind human being, and he just really liked kind of a slower pace of. He just liked to know all his wineries, all his brewers, all his customers, all his employees. And as we grew, it started to feel a lot less comfortable to him. So it became apparent that we were not on the same path.
Yeah, that sucks when that happens. I think everybody's probably dealt with that a time or two. And then how do you feel that they did, maybe after you left, how do you feel that they did with the breweries that they managed?
They started doing a lot more of it, which was...
sorry, go ahead.
It was a little... I don't know, a little ding to my pride, I'd say, because some of the things that I had been requesting that we did, within about a year, they were doing them. But I think it was more of just that was what the market was asking for. But they did a good job.
So they went and picked up some breweries that
they went and picked up breweries that Barley Brown was a big one that I was pushing for us to pick up. And the owner said he didn't want to do it because they didn't have beer that we could buy and put into grocery stores. And it didn't make sense to bring in anything that you couldn't do in package, and they weren't doing package at the time, and then a year later they were carrying Barley Brown.
Yeah,
so
look at that.
It was so weird. Yes, they built it up pretty well. Guy over there, Kyle, took over and did a great job with that beer portfolio.
Kyle Bass,
good shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Kyle, who does not like me anymore. Maybe doesn't like you, or last I checked, didn't like me. Maybe he's back on my train because we tried to steal Delirium from him when we worked at Northwest Specialty.
Yeah, I think that anything under Northwest and Kyle Bass was contentious.
Yeah, that's a good word for it, contentious. But shout out to Kyle, good dude. I like him. He's a good guy, great seller of beer, and I guess he's a wine guy too, isn't he?
Yeah. But he's got a great palate. Hell of a good cook too.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay, take your word for it. Hear that, Kyle? You've been challenged. See if you can come in and fix something on one of the mini barbecues here. Not as many barbecues as I'd like to have, but a few of them. And so why do you think that Hayden snatched up Idaho Wine Merchant?
I just the book and more footprint. They had done it in the past with Tostovan, and recently just picked up another winery or wine distributor.
J.W. Thornton.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's just more of that. It's just a more expansive portfolio. And I also think that it's good on their business in that they are eliminating competition.
Yeah.
And not in a spiteful way, just that if they can control what's getting into the market more, it helps out their business on both sides of that.
And you look at Hayden and their portfolio and you say to yourself, wow, what are they missing? Like, what else could they add? And I mean, what do you think? Is there anything out there that they don't? I mean, they have Red Bull, they have all the big crafts. The only thing they don't have maybe is like a big lager, but do they even really need one?
No, I don't know about that. I think that's the only thing they're really missing right now is just, a big playing domestic. But
why though?
But that being said, I think that's one of the reasons why I don't know. I don't know the reasoning behind it, but I do believe that the portfolio that they are purchasing with Idaho Wine Merchant is fits needs that they were missing with some smaller artisan style wines and breweries.
Yeah, some Walla Walla wines and some Oregon wines, stuff like that they can add to their portfolio.
And Idaho Wine Merchant has huge import book on both wine and beer. So
yeah, the Belgian stuff, that Delirium.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there a wine or a wine group that Idaho Wine Merchant has that is going to be sort of propped up by Hayden now, having the Hayden behind it?
Yeah, I think, the two big ones would be J. Lohr and Bogle. Those are huge brands that they've always wanted to move forward. Family-run wineries, or originally started as family-run wineries and been at it for decades and decades now. And they're grocery store brands that are just going to stand to grow even more from that.
And then any beers that you see that, I mean, we talked about Barley Browns already, but any other of their beer in their beer portfolio that you think is going to take a jump up?
I don't know. I was looking at their book yesterday. I don't really know what ones, because a lot of the breweries that they're working with, they're not, they're kind of maxed out.
It was a trick. That was a trick question.
Yeah, I don't think there is, but I would say
there is one brand. It's Meriwether Cider.
Meriwether Cider, and also I think that some of their German portfolio will probably stand.
Yeah, but Meriwether Cider they're gonna ostensibly be available in Spokane and northern Idaho now, and wherever else Hayden has a warehouse. I mean, that's got to be the plan, right? So they're not going to be able to stay in their little place in Garden City, I don't think, for much longer.
I would think they were hoping that, because Hayden is also in Montana, so there's also Montana that opportunity to grow if they wanted to.
I think that it's a slam dunk for Meriwether. I mean, that when I was looking at their book earlier today, that was the one that stuck out to me. I was like, oh, these guys are going to hit this is a jackpot for them. Like, because they weren't going to go anywhere with Idaho Wine. Idaho Wine Merchant does do northern. As you said, they have the whole state. But do they even have a cooler? Or do they have I don't know, did they ever get a refrigerated warehouse? I have no idea.
I don't know that for sure.
Yeah. So
I know what I used to know about it. Yeah.
And if they did, I apologize. I don't know. But when we were there, that was a major thing with us, is you guys didn't have a refrigerated cooler, and that was a thing, And still, I would think in the year of our Lord 2024, they would have one by now, right?
I would think so. It was the Boise one does, but they moved into a new facility when Ed sold it a few years back.
Yep.
And so I don't really know. I haven't been in that facility, but I know the Outpost did not at the time.
Yeah. So ultimately, what do you think this merger means for the consumer?
I think that it is likely my opinion is that I think this is going to change the market a lot, in that I think what we're getting to is that these distributors are going to start consolidating offerings. So if a brewery is selling 12 different beers now, I think they're going to go to streamline that and say, we're going to carry these 3 in a rotator. Mm-hmm. So I think for consumers, it may be harder to get some of these things. And then for other items, it may be easier to get because they may find them more readily available. But I think it's going to eliminate a lot of one-offs and special releases and things like that will be a little bit tougher.
Maybe. Like Hayden, one thing that is kind of interesting, and I should say that your brewery is, right, you guys are in Hayden's book, right?
Yes, correct.
So we both have nothing but nice things to say about the good people at Hayden, right? I know Dodd's okay. I used to see him at my grocery store every so often. He's a nice guy. Andy, super nice guy. All their people that I've met there, Daryl, everyone else, awesome people.
And a lot of them have been there decades.
30 years,
you don't stay there if it's a bad place to work. So
exactly.
It's got to be a great place to work.
This could just be us like saying like, okay, usually when a company in what is ostensibly a federally mandated thing, like a federally mandated business, right?
Yes. Yep.
Usually when they make a big play like this, there is going to be some like wave that goes down to the consumer. We don't know that for sure. I mean, it might be okay.
And I would say what my comment about the consolidation isn't about a Hayden thing necessarily. I think it's just the state of the industry, and that we in the craft beer industry have been living pretty good life the last few years.
For sure.
And anything we produced could get into a market and sell well, at least for a short period of time. And then we went through a phase of throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. And I think now we're correcting that.
It's the belt tightening is coming, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
If Epic opened right now and came to you guys at Hayden, they went to Hayden and said, "Hey, we have 36 beers, all in 22-ounce bottles. What do you think the distributor would say about that?"
They would probably say no, but if they didn't, they would say, "All right, tell us what 3 you want to have in the market."
Yeah, I think that's true too. So, do you see this working out well for maybe? Okay, so we have a few locals still out there that aren't with Hayden or aren't with any other distributor. How do you think those guys are going to find shelf space?
You can lean on the local thing. Most of the chains are still wanting to play in that pretty heavily. So I think that's a big deal. I am shocked that somebody hasn't done like the Stone type of distributor here, where you have one brewery that creates, or a Crooked Stave, or any of these people that are doing their own distribution network. I'm a little surprised that hasn't happened here locally with one of the breweries, but
Stone wasn't allowed to carry Stone in parts of California.
Yeah. Which is, you got to go to our competitor to buy that, but
yeah.
I'm just surprised that they haven't done that. I know that Woodland was doing.
Yeah, I was gonna say Woodland Lost Grove is trying to do something like that, right?
Yeah.
I gotta get Jiggy in here to talk about what the hell's going on over there. I don't know what they're doing with Woodland right now. It just seems like they're throwing the shit up against the wall, I think is what's going on.
It looks nice in there.
It does, yeah. But
and the packaging rebranding looks great.
I think it just looks okay. I know Dave Crick is a great guy, and they do a great job and everything, but I think it just looks okay. I don't see any. But I am biased because their former owners were some of my best friends. So,
I miss them dearly.
I do too. So, guys, come back. All right. Well, cool. That was awesome. We got a lot of awesome information from you, Greg. Awesome insight. And kind of about where Idaho Wine Merchant maybe was before this takeover took over, and where Hayden kind of looks to be in the future. In the next segment, we will talk about Prost Brewing. We'll see how this little German brewery popped up in the middle of America's craft beer mecca, and how they continue to brew such amazing German beers in Denver, Colorado. All that coming up next on the Idaho Booze Podcast with me, Steve Kuntz, and my guest, Greg Barnes. This show is sponsored by the Idaho Brewers United, or IBU. Sign up for IBU's monthly newsletter at idahobrewers.org and get VIP access to brewery events, tastings, and news straight from the source. Be the first beer nerd on your block to download the IBU app and start earning points for free Gem State beer gear. It's only one email a month, so what do you have to lose? Sign up at idahobrewers.org today. Welcome back to the Idaho Booze Podcast with me, Steve Kuntz. With me, Greg Barnes. Hey, Greg.
Hey.
Welcome back. Now, you tried to leave after the last segment. You got up and you acted like you were going to go, and I had to restrain you. Now, why would you want to go away when right now we're going to talk about your new brewery, Prost?
I wasn't trying to leave. I was just trying to get a view of this beautiful estate here. The Kuntz estate.
The Kuntz estate. With my hounds?
Yeah.
All right, so we have in our hands a Prost beer. Let's crack them. What are we drinking?
We are drinking our Kolsch, which is one of our 4 core brands that we do, and we do it year round.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg.
Okay.
But, He's never been shy about that. I'll tell you that. Prost brews German beers in the absolute heart of the American craft beer scene. So how has Prost played in Colorado, and how do you think it fits into the very competitive craft beer scene there, the landscape of Denver?
Today, I think it fits extremely well. I think at the time they started it, it was certainly unique because everybody that was popping open a new brewery there was focused on IPAs. And,
Hops.
And our owner said, hey, how can we get into an industry and not sell a lot of stuff? Not really, but they decided to go a different route. And at the time, it was a unique venture, but now it's paying off because we're seeing this resurgence of lagers and pilsners.
I feel like he just wanted to get that the industry discount for the Great American Beer Fest. Is that any truth to those rumors? That's what he.
Yeah, they said, you know, what is there any way we could spend millions of dollars so that we can get some free passes? Actually, not free. They have to pay for it.
No, you have to pay for it. You do get a discount.
You get a discount pass.
I'm hoping to get this year, hoping to get a media credential. I got that the first time I went to GABF, and that's pretty sweet. That's free.
Yeah.
That's nice. So what are your focus brands at Prost, and which beers are sort of your best sellers out of those?
We do, outside of Colorado, we do 4 core beers. We do Kolsch.
Which we're drinking right now.
Correct. And Pilsner, Dunkel, and Hefeweizen.
Now, what the hell do those words mean?
They mean good beer, is what they mean.
In what language is that? Is that German?
German, yes, correct, yes. No, that's Austrian.
Oh, Austrian. Whoa.
But those are our 4 core beers, and then we do a seasonal beer, which we rotate out. So we do a summer lager, winter lager, and then as we sit here today, tomorrow we launch our Marzen for Oktoberfest.
Oh, Marzen. Is it, correct me, is it August 1st tomorrow? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
So we're starting Oktoberfest.
Haven't you heard?
Mm-hmm.
We've got Oktoberfest, pumpkin beers, all starting in August 1st now.
Well, it's because you have to squeeze in fresh hops.
You got fresh hops.
How does it go? It goes Oktoberfest first, then pumpkin beers, then fresh hop right on top of that.
And then an hour after that ends on
those winter warmer
nobody
things.
Wants anything to do with those beers anymore.
Yeah. Pumpkin beers stop selling, I would say, October 31st, right about 11:50 p.m.
Yeah, probably more like October 28th.
28th.
This is when they stop.
People have to chill them down.
Right.
And fresh up, yeah. This is what we used to do when we worked at a distributor together. We would go back and forth about how many pumpkin beers we were going to order, and then our boss would come in and go, we're not ordering any fucking pumpkin beers.
That's a good impression of him. That's really good. It's pretty dead on there.
You have to get very guttural. So the Dunkel, Pilsner, Rotator, Kolsch, Hefeweizen. Out of those, which one do you like the best right now? Which one are you drinking? You find yourself kind of gravitating towards?
Kolsch.
Yeah.
Our best-selling beer is our Pilsner. It's the most award-winning beer that we have. It's what we're known for. Hefeweizen's our second best-selling, but me personally, I last year for our sales meetings at GABF, we had to each pick a brand that we did sales pitch on, and I did mine on Kolsch and told all the very well-versed people in German beer at our sales meeting that Kolsch actually translates to lawnmower from German to, and they actually had to check and see if maybe I had something there. But it's just a perfect lawn mowing beer, so it's fantastic.
We're drinking it right now. It's nice and light. It's crisp. It's got that, what I like to call sort of that Kolschness to it, which is hard to explain if you've never had a Kolsch, but it's, you know what I'm talking about, right? That lingering mouthfeel.
Yes. Yeah.
It's really, it's a great example of the lager for sure. And this is a lagered Kolsch, I would assume. Not an ale, not fermented warm, fermented cold.
It's fermented warm.
Oh, it is fermented warm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sometimes with the Kolsch, because with the Kolsch yeast, you can go warm or cold, right?
Well, it sort of plays into what we've got now, our new brewery. So that's why it took me a second to remember where we're at, because we just opened up a new facility. And so some of our recipes have changed, and they're doing some different things from what we were doing in the past.
So this new facility is pretty badass, right? Tell us about it.
It is state of the art. It's one of a kind. It's a 67,000 square foot facility. We're running a 20 barrel system, a 50 barrel system. We're doing open fermentation for all our beers now. We've got 10 open fermentation tanks. We do 4 ales and 6 lager on that. They're self-cleaning. They're fancy. Oof. We've got Pentair filter system. It's just all kinds of bells and whistles. It's pretty amazing. It was 2.5 years of making this. Casper Schultz did the brew house and came out and installed it, and it's a one of a kind that they did specifically for us. So.
And there's 2 brew houses within the one brewery. Why do you have 2 brew houses?
Because our test batch pilot system is a 20 barrel system.
Wow.
We do some contract brewing there, and so doing a 20 barrel system frees us up to still be brewing our beers on the 50 barrel and then help out some other breweries that need some beer brewed on our 20 barrel.
That's awesome. Good to hear. Good to hear you. Neighbors being neighbors, helping people out. Where is it located?
In North Glen. So we're just north of Denver. Big city terminology. It's like 8 miles, but it's like a 30-minute drive. So
basically where the old airport was, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not at all where the new airport is, which is in
nowhere near Denver,
Nebraska. So do you have to go to Denver a lot?
Yeah, probably 4 times a year. We go down for GABF.
Poor bastard.
And then we go down, like we went down and brewed a beer, did a collab beer, and then we go down for meetings and stuff. So
that's awesome. And it sounds like you're really excited to be part of this brewery.
It's fun. It's a unique experience. It's interesting because it's as you know, we spent a lot of time in the beer industry where we were waiting for the new beer to come out, and we got a rotator and we got a new double IPA or a hazy this or a new sour, and we release a new beer every 5 months on our rotator, and I already know what they're going to be for the next 7 years. So
when it takes like 7 weeks to brew a beer, you can't really be making hazy IPAs every other week, right?
No, we can on our 20 barrel, but not on the pros.
On the tester, on the old 20 barrel.
Yeah.
Ah, that's amazing. Cool. And I'm really excited. Next time I'm down there, I definitely want to make sure to get a VIP tour of that place, because I'm a huge fan of craft lager, and you kind of alluded to it earlier. So you have a pretty big territory, right? What's your territory nowadays?
I cover Montana, Idaho, and Utah, and a sliver of western Wyoming.
And this is why you can never play golf with me, right?
That's correct. Yes, it's correct. And it's also why I can't travel with my golf clubs, because I would be playing and not working, then I have to cover a lot of ground.
So which local Mountain West breweries are doing lagers right now? And we'll just leave Prost out of it. We know Prost lagers are awesome. They've won a bunch of awards. What other kind of Mountain West breweries are doing lagers that you're finding are really special and kind of fun to drink?
It's funny because I'm starting to find a lot more now, obviously being in specifically looking at these styles, but there's some locally that are doing some great lagers, but then there's also some places like Templin Family in Salt Lake that are doing basically just strictly lagers, and they do a couple of IPAs and for the masses, but
Kevin does some awesome IPAs there too.
Yeah,
they're easy.
Ferd is okay, huh?
Yeah, Ferd is the reason why they're able to brew all those
yes, exactly.
lagers.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's a little bit of credit to those other beers, but yeah, that's true. They're brewing some amazing lagers right now. Oh man, what's your favorite coming out of there right now?
Oh, Hellas.
Stuff is like medicine.
It's so good.
It's
good for you.
It's good for you. Cures what ails you.
But there's a lot of breweries in the area.
Soft Pilsner that they do is really good.
Well, yeah, and they just had their Grisette. They do some fun beers.
Flowery.
Yeah.
What other breweries are you seeing that are brewing some? Because you get the chance to kind of travel the West Coast here. So what else are you seeing? There's
quite a few. I mean, just going strictly off of what they're like, more lager houses. Wayfinder's great. Chuckanut is fantastic. Love them. But they're just seeing more and more, and it seems like I sort of feel like this is going to be my demise saying this, but I feel like
don't get fired.
Pilsner sort of kind of got a Merlot treatment with what Merlot did in the wine industry, and that people just made it because they had to, because they needed something light and refreshing for people to drink when they came into the tap room, but they didn't really put a lot of effort into it. And so I think that it didn't catch on as much as some of other styles did. Yeah. But now we're starting to see some people really putting their heart into it.
Oh, it's back. Yeah. Pilsner. So we're of a certain age where we came up with craft beer. Like Sierra Nevada was my first craft beer. Yeah. Probably pretty close to yours. Pond. Yeah, Beer Pond. Those kind of beers. So we kind of ushered in the hop era, I would say. Like people like us. Because I really like IPAs. You like IPAs okay, right? Like I love them. I just don't need to have 97 different versions of it. So what I'm saying is that that's true. So what I'm saying is that we sort of developed this monster, and it was sort of our monster. We took care of it, and now we're getting older. So we're reaching, I think, and this is true for me, it might not be true for you, but I know that I'm reaching for Pilsners and light lagers and things that are a little bit less, let's say, stomach stabby than some of these other ones. I've found myself getting away from hazies more and more because of the after effects of it. It just tears up my stomach sometimes, especially if it's a double hazy. Are you seeing some of that same stuff too?
100%. And I think that the other side of that too is I think that people are, look, we're in the industry to sell beer, and you sell a lot more at 5% ABV than you do 9.7. And
that's true, but I also think it's because of like brewers like Prost, like Templins, like Wayfinder, especially. God, yeah, when you mention them, they're really good. I think they're taking the lager and Freem is also doing it. I was just going to say Freem.
Reuben is doing a really nice one.
Reuben, they're taking the lager and they're putting more flavor into these lagers, and also you're getting that they're making them the right way, so you're not getting a lot of diesel lagers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I think for us at our time in distribution, Von Ebert was a big one. Von Ebert and E9 really helped out in that they were creating really, really amazing lagers, and people could understand them, and it wasn't just a one-off thing. Yeah. It was a rotating different hops, different styles. And I think that really got people, and the quality made it so that people would reorder it.
Shout out E9, Tacoma, baby. So what's it like? I sold beer in Utah. I've talked about it a little bit on this podcast, not a lot, because I'm still working out some things with my doctors about that. So what's it like selling beer in Utah today? Is it any different than it was 10 years ago, or how has it changed?
Yeah. It's, well, I guess Utah is essentially Salt Lake. We'll just say in Salt Lake. So I can't speak to, I mean, Ogden is too.
It's Ogden to,
but I mean,
it's Ogden to Provo.
I can't speak to how Lehigh's doing in their.
Oh, I love Lehigh. We'll talk about Lehigh.
But it's really changed. You're starting to get a lot more, the food and drink scene in Salt Lake is pretty amazing right now. Really great restaurants. So they really think out what they're putting on. And so yeah, it's great selling beer down there, and the
there's a bunch of beer bars, really good beer bars.
Really good beer bars,
like doing
really good,
really awesome things. Shout out Beer Hive, shout out Beer Bar,
Bayou,
awesome places. Bayou, Mark, yep. Shout out. Good friend. He's a friend of the show.
Now we got 4 Slackwaters down there that are.
Shout out Justin and Chris Ann, also friends of the show.
So, yeah, it's great. I love selling beer down there. And it's been fun to be. We just relaunched, or I just got to go back down there with Prost and launched in May. Awesome. And the styles just fit really well right now. So.
And you can put some of them on tap, right?
Yep, almost all of them. We got 3 of them on tap in Utah.
That's amazing. And that if you get something on tap there and you're from out of town, the first 6 months, you're just like printing money, right?
Well, yeah, I don't know if we're printing money, but we've got some printing plates being made.
Yeah. A couple months ago, I got a message from you with an invitation to go to Sockeye for a little party that you guys threw with Sockeye. You guys did a little collaboration. Tell us about that collaboration, how it came to be, and what the beer was, and all the ins and outs of that deal.
That one was a lot of fun. It was the first one that we've done in distribution outside of Colorado. Through our distribution network, and had been friends with the guys over at Sockeye. They were in the same portfolio as us. It just made a lot of sense, and they were doing some really outstanding things, trying to move Sockeye into a new era. And we thought it'd be fun to do something, and we were right on the verge of opening up the new brewery, and I thought it would be fun to come down there and hang out and have the guys from Sockeye come down and brew a beer with us. So we did that back in March. And released it in May, and it was a beautiful Czech style lager, and Czech style pale lager.
I was gonna say it had some gravitas, it had some weight to it. Right?
Yeah. It turned out amazing, but it was a lot of fun, and the guys at Sockeye are just doing lights out stuff over there, so it was great to partner with them and have something fun that we could do, and launched it into Idaho and Montana only. So
that's awesome. And you can go back onto my Substack and find the Friday Night Pints from whatever week that was and see my full review on that beer. It was, as I recall, very delicious. I think I probably had 2 or 3 while at that party. And that was a fun party. It was at the Putt-Putt Golf place. I don't think we did any golfing or anything, but
we actually did. We had a competition with Sockeye.
I leave.
We had a competition with Sockeye. We're doing a collaboration tap takeover in Denver for GABF, and
no kidding.
Unfortunately, they lost at Putt-Putt, and they're going to have to pick up the tab for that night. So our drinks are on them.
Well, I will hopefully be down there with you guys to help add on to that tab.
I can get you a media pass for that.
I'll get a media. Yeah. Okay. I know you. I know a guy. I got to meet a brewer too. He was down here. I forget who the brewer was that came down. Didn't you guys have?
Oh, that was Jacob. He's our director of sales.
Oh, he's the sales director. Yeah. That's right.
Giant.
Tall.
Yeah, giant.
So is that beer still available, or is that sold?
It is. There's a little bit still around town. There's Albertsons has some right now, and locally in some of the Albertsons, and then we've got a little bit of draft still laying around. But I mean, it's sold very, very well, and then we had a few kegs that we brought in, and so
cool. Awesome. And it was a great beer. So tell me what's coming up for Prost. What should we look out for? You mentioned a winter lager coming. Anything else that happening? Any events or anything like that going on?
Well, this is our holiday season, is Oktoberfest season. So we've got a lot of events, a lot of mileage, a lot of traveling.
I think you're just talking about yourself.
Sorry, my wife. But we so we've got Marzen coming out, and that's a big one. That's a big focus of ours. And then we've got some really, really, really fun things planned for GABF this year. It's something unique, and it's going to be pretty amazing.
Is it a giant beer hall?
No, it is not. It's at the convention center, but it's a really cool opportunity. We got to do some cross promotion with some people.
Wow.
You'll see. It'll be
very
cool.
Specific.
Yes. Well, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say right now because it's still sort of a private thing. But and then the great part right now for Prost, honestly, is that we're starting to see a lot of the beers making it into the market now that are out of the new facility. So it's kind of like having all new product again, and not that recipes have changed necessarily, but just we got cleaner, crisper, prettier beers now. And it's been really fun to see those come out too. So that's what we've got going on right now.
All right. Well, it sounds awesome. The beer is delicious. This Kolsch is really nice. It's hitting the spot. Anyway, Greg Barnes, thank you so much for joining us today on the Idaho Booze Podcast. Coming up next, like I said, Friday Night Pints. We're going to go over some new beers. Looks like we have a Pilsner from Freem that I got a hold of. Also, a new IPA from Matchless that we'll talk about. That's all coming up next. I'm your host, Steve Kuntz, on Idaho Booze Podcast. Welcome back, brother, to Friday Night Pints. Here on the Idaho Booze Podcast, I'm Steve Kuntz, and I'm talking like Hulk Hogen. Not sure about that. Anyway, Friday Night Pints this week. Got a few things here. I did already talk about the martini I had with the the nectarine vodka from 44 North. Delicious. I ordered it up, dry, and it was great. So I recommend it. I recommend that wholeheartedly. Just go get one now. I don't care what time it is. But we got some beers, a trio of beers here. Actually went to Sockeye last week to see what was going on. Ran into their genius marketing and sales team over there, Tyson and Ben. Great dudes. Awesome guys. Really smart. Sockeye is just really crushing it. Their brewing team is amazing right now. Tyson is amazing. Ben's a great dude, also amazing. These are just it's a really well-oiled machine over there right now. And, I can say the same for a lot of other breweries in town as well. I'm seeing it. I've known these people at these breweries for, more than a decade now. And Sockeye, just really nice right now. They're crushing it. So Ben is a certified craft beer nerd. He has created this whole program of barrel-aged beers. It's called the Sockeye Chronicles. I'll have a link to it in the show notes. And, if you like barrel-aged beers and you want to start getting, collecting and doing some of that stuff, maybe get over there and try these out. And then if you're feeling extra fishy, join the membership program. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Sockeye Chronicles. Anyway, Ben poured me a really nice big taster of this Peach Creek, it's called. And the first thing you get on the nose is huge peach, just like you just cut open a big ripe peach, or you stuck your head into a big basket of peaches, or whatever you want the metaphor to work for you, is what it is. Big peaches coming off the nose. And it was really pretty in the glass too. Dark yellow, zero head, like most barrel-aged beers. Peach, white wine, and a good amount of funk on the nose. This is a sour beer, and a touch of oak. Then you get on the tongue peaches up front, Sour Patch Kids on the finish with some green grapes, melon, and again that light oak. Good amount of funk, not overly sweet. So it doesn't come off as a very sweet beer. It's more dry. 9.4%, 6 IBU, on tap and in bottles at Sockeye. And a fun fact, they made it with split rail Pinot Meunier grapes, or grape must, probably grape must. And like I said, I looked on the menu and they had a whole list of barrel-aged stuff. They had, I think, 9 in all, either on tap or in bottles. And they're a part of the Sockeye Chronicles membership program. So maybe check that out if you're into getting that cellar going. I know mine could use a few extra bottles for sure. And let's see what else. Matchless, Georgetown collab. This was called Juice Bomb Units. My buddy Michael Teeter shared this with me from Whole Foods. Juice Bomb is right. Man, it is explosive. Strawberry, melon, lime zest, lemon, all on the nose with a little slight sweetness at the end. Sort of what I like about Matchless and Georgetown beers both. They had really great hop flavor, but it also had this little bit of sweetness and this little bit of what I get from a lot of these Matchless hazies, especially. This one I'm not sure was a hazy. I think it might have been a West Coaster, but super sippable nonetheless, with a lot of those flavors pushing through the palate. And sort of a fruit punch vibe going on at the end with strawberry and what I could only call red flavor coming in at the end. And if you know, you know. It's definitely one I'd get again. 16-ounce cans at Whole Foods and other retailers, wherever you find Matchless. And then finally, one last beer here. Freem. Freem. Crushing it also. West Coast Pilsner is their new beer. This thing was hoppy on the nose. Good amount of cracker malt. That freshly mowed grass and lemon zest that you get from sort of those kind of hops, those noble hops. All of it carries into the beer with a nice mouthfeel. I usually would associate that mouthfeel with a pale ale, so it's kind of heavy for a Pilsner, but still pretty refreshing with that hoppiness and that sort of sweet, crackery malt. Hops come through really nicely. They leave you wanting more with that crisp, clean finish too. So yeah, there's a little bit thicker mouthfeel for a Pilsner, but still really, really good. Found that one in 16-ounce cans. They're in those black Freem specialty cans. I got mine at the Co-op. I'm sure they have them in Whole Foods, Brewers Haven, everywhere else that you can find craft beers, and especially Freem beers, which are really killing it right now. Freem, if you're listening, hit me up. Let's get you on the show. that will just about do it for the show. Thanks again to Greg Barnes for coming on and talking all that stuff about Idaho Wine Merchant and Hayden and Prost Brewing and all that, those fun stories about how he and I met. Good time seeing Greg. If you don't know him, next time there's a Prost event, be sure you head out and go meet him. Greg Barnes, great dude to know. Awesome source of everything having to do with beer or wine or spirits here in the Treasure Valley. The guy is just a font of knowledge. Anyway, thanks to him. Thanks to everyone listening. Really appreciate all the feedback. Keep it up. Idaho Booze Pod at gmail.com. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have anything, any questions or anything like that. We have a mailbag coming up next week. Please send in your questions to that email address. Again, that link will be in the show notes. You can get us on Spotify and Apple Pods, the Idaho Booze Podcast, available there. Please subscribe and review, or get us on Substack, and then you'll get all the written stuff that I do as well during the week whenever I do that. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Really appreciate it. My name's Steve Kuntz. This has been the Idaho Booze Podcast. Good day and good drinking, everyone.